Today's guest is Katie Miethe. She's the owner of the Leavenworth Art Haus in Leavenworth, Washington. She recently won a big award for her first year in business. She's here to tell the story, not just of the business, but of the obstacles she overcame to get here. Let's first start with your history, kind of your story behind art. And I know that this was kind of a big idea you've had for a long time, and you had some obstacles in the way to bring it to fruition. We'll talk about that as well. But let's just talk about your interest in art. Was it part of your growing up? Was it part of your family? Why was it of interest to you in the first place?
I grew up, honestly, I think that I was writing right when I was born. I was writing and getting stories out there and singing. Singing has always been a part of my life, and different forms of art. I always wasn't painting and teaching and drawing it, but singing, dancing, theater, all of those things when I was young. My dad published some different poetry books, and then anything that I could get my hands on to color and paint. As a kiddo, I did. So art has always been a way to connect me, just to calm me, to connect me, to ground me. I've always kind of just had a passion for that.
When you started to think about, well, even then, you said you taught, so did you teach, and at what level did you teach? Because I know that part of the art house you do some instruction, but what was it that you taught? Did you teach art class, or did you help others? What was your background?
It was mostly just like doing it, teaching it. I taught like I was in school. I always was the kid that the teacher would have help guide the other kids because I'd get my projects done. I was a quick art student though. Like I always rushed through it, never took my time. So it's been kind of cool now that I can slow things down, now that I have a place where I don't have to rush through it. But I was always the one that would get done, and I'd help other people get their projects done or help with the ideas. I'm a really good idea person. Sometimes not always good at the doing and following through part, but always just had an interest and a passion and love for art. And then even before I moved to Leavenworth, I had a sticks and stones business where it was just, I would go out and I love finding rocks in nature that are painted.
Stones business, I was thinking, what is that? What is a sticks and stones business?
Sticks and stones. In Spokane, where I grew up, a lot of rock hounding is popular, where people will go, they have Facebook pages where people will go and hide rocks and paint them to bring joy to people.
Yes.
And it's controversial because, you don't want to be painting on nature, but you can buy rocks too that you can do this with. So I buy my own rocks and I would just hide them throughout the town, kind of a way to sprinkle joy to people's life. People are always having a hard time, go to the hospitals and leave them so that people who may be having chemo treatments will find a rock that says hope on it. So there was always ways for me to use art to spread joy too. And Sticks and Stones was my first business that I ever attempted with art. And we would make little tic-tac-toe to-go kits with sticks that we'd find in nature, and rocks and things like that. So we could sell those at the farmer market and, do different things like that. But
that was creative.
Yes, always creative and thinking of ways to disconnect. I mean, I love the social media and the phones and all of that, but ways to disconnect. And you don't always need a bunch of paint and supplies to do it. You can go outside and go for a walk and find some stuff and then just go home and paint it. You can use food coloring for paint and mix, you don't have to go buy acrylic paints or watercolors either. You can make your own paint out of beets. You can make beet juice and boil it and make really pretty red colors. So just experimenting with different mediums that you can paint with and paint on. It's always been a passion of mine, and just finding ways to get creative and innovative. So
I read an article a while back, a couple of years ago probably, about a man who was incarcerated and was an artist and didn't have access to paints and everything. So he would water down the M&Ms and use the color from the M&Ms to decorate envelopes, because they were allowed envelopes and paper to write. And so that's what he would do. And he ended up selling those and becoming hugely successful and, doing all of this. But it started with just using what you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of someone who did not have access to much, but made do with what he had. And so I'm always inspired by people who figure it out from wherever they are.
Yeah.
Do you always have in mind opening some kind of own space along the way? Was it kind of the thing that you always had on your mind, that one thing you wanted to do?
My dad always said that if you're ever going to be happy, you're going to want to have your own business. So that stuck in my head as a young child, to have my own business. But it never seemed feasible. It never seemed like something that I really would want to do, because again, how do you share art and make it a successful business? I never knew that there was a way to connect it, even with writing and music. I just never thought there was a way to connect it, because you have to be
Well,
Taylor Swift.
you have to, yeah, you have to. The other thing too is, so I've written a couple of books and I've written articles and I do these things, and growing up, all I wanted to do was be an author. And
Yeah.
if I had stuck to that plan, I may have starved. But
Yeah.
so much of what has come from that surrounds the book, the keynotes that I give now, and I sign books in the back of the room. I'm getting paid to
Right.
speak. Selling the books is the bonus, right? Or
Right.
the different things that the opportunities have come because I put, something to paper that is meaningful and has a life of its own. And so I can relate to that because, very few people make a full living in art, in music, in writing. So you have to be okay, I think, with the pivot of what does this look like for me? How do I follow this passion and earn money at it without ruining the passion for it?
Right.
You figured out how to do that.
Yeah, I've learned I've had to pivot my whole life, and that's always been, there's been obstacles my whole life that I've dealt with. So being able to pivot has always been important. But to be able to pivot to this point where I'm at now, where I'm able to take my passion and connect with people and, make a little bit of a living doing it too, has been really rewarding and really exciting.
Well, let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about one of the biggest obstacles that was in your way and what you had to do to overcome that. So we'll be back in just a moment.
Awesome.
I'm talking with Katie Miethe. You are the owner of the Art Haus in Leavenworth. And we were talking about obstacles and having to pivot. And you had this idea of wanting to own your own business and have it be about art. But what does that look like? Along the way, you suffered through alcoholism, and you have been 8 years alcohol free.
Yep.
And when we were talking before starting on the show, you said you wouldn't have this business if you were still drinking alcohol. So let's talk about that barrier, because we all have obstacles to overcome to achieve the one thing or the many things we want to do in our lives. I'm always interested in find out, what is that one thing that you want to do, and what are the obstacles, and how can we train our brain to, instead of seeing the obstacle, seeing the way through it, instead of seeing a challenge, seeing the answer, to automatically go to that space where there's a solution instead of getting stuck in whatever makes what we want to do hard. And so I love talking with you about this and giving people hope and an example of overcoming some pretty insurmountable odds to achieve what you have. So you had bypass surgery, gastric bypass surgery, which lent to your difficulty with alcohol just because of the absorption and things. But you speak for yourself about that and how it took something that alcohol was always in your life, you said, and made it now something that you really truly had to give up in order to move forward and have success in your life.
Yeah, alcohol, I mean, like you said, it's always played a part in my life. At family gatherings, there's always alcohol involved. At a young age, I would sometimes have a couple drinks to help me fall asleep or something. But then it really progressed, like you said, after I had bypass surgery. Essentially, bypass surgery, it takes your stomach and they make it to the size of like an egg. And so you have to be really selective of what you're putting in your body. And your body no longer can process alcohol after a bypass surgery the same way. So it became very unpredictable when I would drink. And I had my surgery probably 11 years ago. And 3 years into it, after battling some serious issues with alcohol, there was actually a time when I spent a few days in the ICU with a tube breathing for me. I was intubated because alcohol had won at that point. I had drank too much and my body had given out. So I had to make the tough choice at that point to give up alcohol completely. And it was always there. It was always my buddy. It was always my friend. And in order to continue on and be a successful part of this world, I had to decide that couldn't be a part of my journey anymore. And I did some different things because me on my own, of course, I wanted to give it up, but it was hard to do. So I went home to Spokane. I was living in Bellevue when I got sober. And I went home to Spokane and I started some AA meetings because my brother, he actually had a recovery from meth. And so he knew like where to go. There's some rooms here available, some people you can talk to. And so I just really dove into the sober community in Spokane and got some tools in my tool belt to move on and to, continue on through this world, this journey without having to drink and finding some different solutions because, very solution based. But when you're drinking, it's very easy to look at all your roadblocks. And when you're lost in a bottle, it's easy to say, well, I can't do that. I always had a dream of owning my own business and of bringing happiness to people. I love seeing people create and be happy. But I couldn't have done that when I was drinking. And so 8 years ago, I quit drinking. I went to meetings, and every day since I've made the choice to not pick up a drink. And it's tempting because, it's so normalized and it's so just part of every day. And that's part of why at the Art House, we've also incorporated some mocktails and some non-alcoholic drinks because I would like to have a beer here and there, go float the river with some beer, but I just can't.
Well, and I think that that's a thing. It's more and more available today. A lot of the brands, big brands, are making non-alcoholic options. Mocktails are pretty and they have their own appeal. And so I don't think it probably makes it any easier for people who struggle with alcohol to drink a mocktail as opposed to something else, but it's an option. You still have to make the decision not to drink, but you have an option to hold something in your hand that resembles, and for some people, I've had a woman on my show a couple of times who is very big in mocktails when she decided to quit drinking. And sometimes you're taught, don't go that direction. It's a slippery slope. So it really depends on the individual, whoever's watching. Yeah. Maybe mocktails are not for you.
Yeah.
But in your case, you're comfortable with it and you offer it in your space, assuming that people who even drink alcohol might enjoy a mocktail when they're
right.
there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a pregnant mom in here before and she's like, you know what? I've been craving a glass of wine and I know it's okay for some people, but I've been trying to avoid it. But maybe I'll have a rosé, a non-alcoholic one, because
something in a pretty glass, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just about telling our mind something that's different.
So now you decide to open this business, and you're alcohol free, and you're making these decisions. But part of it was that you lived in the Leavenworth space as a wine taster, as a drinker, as an indulger of alcohol. And so now you have a child and you're thinking, what do people do around here when they're not drinking? Right. And you started thinking about what that space would look like.
Yeah. Yep. And just envisioning, originally I thought it'd be more sticks and stones and more earthy. But when we opened, we added some ceramic pieces in here too. And that really took off. So a lot of people have been doing the ceramics here, but
it's fun. My son and I did ceramics when he was like 5 years old. We went to some place. We were on a road trip for a couple of months, and he just kept painting stuff. And and at the end, I wrote it down in my notes to tell you, it was $87, and that was in 2004. So I don't know how much that would be today. Probably $150 or $100.
Oh,
but he was just like so into it. I still have the pieces that he painted. But what a fun thing,
Yeah.
I wasn't keeping track of the money, but you can definitely, we'll talk about that in the next segment, what it costs to do it. You don't have to spend $87 for your child to paint there. But having this option, this creative space, and you decided to really color it up. I mean, look behind you. So it's very opposite of sticks and stones. And what made you decide that you were going to do it in this bolder, more colorful way? Because you can create whatever space you want, and you're an artist, so you have a little more skill than the average person to decide what your spaces will look like.
The bright colors and like the chakra, we have the chakra dots kind of throughout the space. When we opened, we had different colored paint buckets in the window with, like 7 or 8 different colors. Color has always been one of my favorite things. And if you ask me my favorite color, it probably would be rainbow, just because I couldn't tell you today if it's red or purple, but I think that color is just magical. So my space has always in my mind been a bright, fun, vibrant space. Even if it were sticks and stones, it probably would have been all colorful and bright. Just the product would have been a little bit more dim. And I'm a bold personality, so anything that's bright and attractive draws my eye. So in here, I just wanted nice, big, bright lights and as many colorful splats as I could find. I even have some throughout the floor space. When this was a wine tasting room for 13 years, so imagine a year ago when we came in here, we were doing new floors and painting. And then we just decided as much color as we could get on here to make it happy. And it's one of the biggest things that people say when they walk into my space is, wow, this is such a happy place. And so we've really hit that mark. So
it reminds me of one of my friends from high school. Her mom we painted, the walls were pink, I think, and let us just splatter paint all over the walls and her bedspread. And then we did our jeans and some t-shirts, and that was a fun place to be. Just the house was a fun place to be, but her room where we, when you're a teenager, you're just always in your friend's room.
Oh, yeah.
That reminds me of it. So it automatically, I think, kind of triggers, or in a good way, is reminiscent of childhood, the rainbow and getting to color and draw. And for me, at least, I really enjoyed that as well. So I used to draw the same rainbow with the clouds, with the birds, for my math teacher, Mrs. Camp, for like 2 years. I don't know what she did with all of them, but we draw her kind of the same thing all the time. But anyway, okay, let's take a break and then let's talk about this business of yours, because you won a really big award, and we want to let people know where you're at, what they can do there, and how they can utilize your space. So we'll take a break. We'll be right back. Finishing up with Katie Miethe, you are the owner of the Art Haus, and you recently won a pretty big award. So tell us about that.
So we went to the chamber meeting this last week for the Leavenworth Chamber of Commerce, and I think they have like 500 members or so. And they were doing awards. They had 4 awards to give out, and they started with some of my reviews when they were announcing the Emerging Business of the Year award for 2023. They said that this business has 47 5-star reviews on Google. And then I kind of, piqued my interest when I heard that. I said, I think that could be my business, because I knew, I respond to my Google reviews. I take great pride in the fact when I get a good review, it makes me happy. And I appreciate everybody who's done that for me. But it's been all organic. I haven't put QR codes on my tables or asked people to do them. So it was kind of cool that that's how the chamber introduced this award. One of the things I take great pride in is providing a good experience to guests. So to hear some of my reviews, people saying that they loved, their experience here. So that was really cool. And then I got the award for Emerging Business for 2023. I have a beautiful, beautiful trophy that I was able to present my daughter, who's been begging me for a trophy for the past year, even though she hasn't won anything. So yeah, and just hearing some of the things that they had said about my business was really cool, because, I wanted to create a place where you could make a memory, you could create a memento. If it was too warm or too cold outside, you could escape the elements, but not feel pressured to have to order a bunch of food or a bunch of drinks. But you could come in and you could, for $10, create something, really cool, or you could upgrade your experience and spend a little bit more if you wanted to. But I've been able to do that. I've had a lot of people who've said, like, this was the best part of our trip. Thank you for creating a space for me.
Right, because you're getting a lot of tourists. So you're getting people who leave and are busy on a vacation and still take the time to review your business. So they must have really enjoyed it. That's a big thing.
Yeah. And we've connected with our locals too. I mean, they've wrapped their arms around us. I've done some art classes where some of our local kids come in once a week for 4 weeks, and we learn a different technique. We do a different project. So I've got to connect with our local kiddos in that regard. Some bridal showers, some birthday parties. So we've been just having
book events there. And
yeah.
I just recently went to one of those things where you paint and they do instruction, and I'm sorry, mine never looks like the.
Well, you'll have to
eat it. Yeah,
you'll have to make it to one of our plastic canvas ones, because those are no pressure, and then you pass the canvas with your partner so that you're creating on each other's. And then you don't have to worry about if it's going to turn out perfect or not. So
I just recently saw something, I think it was on Instagram or something, that like paint your mate or something, or like you go on a date or a friend girls night or something and you paint each other.
yeah, I'm never attempting that one because I took out like I won't.
Like, what do I look like to whoever you are sitting across from me? Yeah. So you could have birthday parties, like you said, whatever you want there. Yeah.
Yep.
And so how close is your vision? Obviously, it's a hugely successful. You've already won this award in the first year of business. How close is it to what you imagined it to be? And are you just getting started?
You know, it's everything I could imagine, but it's nothing that I saw whatsoever. I mean, when we opened, we had wood pieces, canvases, and rocks that were included with your $10 studio fee that we charged. But so many people were picking the ceramic pieces and doing them, and it felt really awkward charging a studio fee on top of what they were paying for the ceramics. So we just kind of got rid of that. We had to pivot midway through our our year, and
you got to figure out what they want.
Yeah, and so we dropped the studio fee while keeping the same $10 option, so they can still come in and do the $10 canvas or wood piece. But we've just individually priced the ceramics, so there's no more studio fees, and they just paid for the piece, and then they leave with it the same day. We're a little different than your traditional pottery shop. We don't have a kiln, so we don't fire your piece. We do an in-house glaze. You take it with you the same day, but it's all just decorative, fun stuff. So nothing that you're going to eat off of or put into the dishwasher. So it's more of a place to come and create and have some fun, to talk to your family, to just do something different in Leavenworth besides eat, drink, and shop, which is fun and exciting to do.
It's also good. Yeah, I have still the pieces that I painted when I was young. Because I had a foster sister who lived with us for just a few months, like 6 months, but we've stayed close, and she loved doing that. And so we would paint, and she was 8 years older than me. I wanted to do whatever she was doing. Sure, I couldn't paint as well as she could, but I was really encouraged by it, and it's a lot of fun. And I still have pieces and ornaments I painted when I was a kid, and all those things. So let's tell the folks where they can get in touch with you and book their event or show up there. Do you have to make a reservation? Can you just show up?
So you can totally just show up. We're here every day from 11 to 6 for walk-in appointments, other than Wednesday. Wednesday, we are by appointment only, but you can make appointments online at leavenwortharthaus.com. House is a H-A-U-S. We had to put that Bavarian flair on there. So it's leavenwortharthaus.com. But you can make reservations. You can email me to book a party. We do bridal showers, birthday parties. Even just stop by. We have some diamond art and things that you could take to go paint by numbers. So if you're looking for a creative space in town, this is where you can come.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being so transparent about your story. Thank you.
Absolutely.